Sophie and I love books.
I'm Rudi and I love movies. Welcome to It Was a Book First, the podcast about new book-to-screen adaptations. Today we're trauma dumping at Center Ice for Off Campus, Amazon Prime Video's series adaptation of Elle Kennedy's romance novels of the same name. If you're new here, I'm Rudi Greenberg, a culture reporter who previously covered movies and TV at the Washington Post.
And I'm Sophie Vershbow, a culture writer writing about books, literary culture, and the publishing industry at places like Esquire and New York Magazine.
On this podcast, we talk about the page-to-screen adaptations everyone's talking about. Sophie reads the books, we both watch the thing, and then she tells me about all the differences. So consider this your spoiler warning. But before we revisit our college experiences and head off campus, Sophie, have you read or watched anything good lately?
I have actually watched something really, really good, but I first want to say this is our first recording that we've done since officially launching the podcast, and it's just been so much fun to finally share this with people. I think I just want to say on behalf of both of us, we worked on this project for 6 months. It was so much fun building this with you, Rudi, and it's just been a joy getting to share it. So thank you so much to everyone who listened to our first episodes, who's listening now. It's just been a really, really exciting time.
It has been, and we have so much more to come, and continue sending your feedback and liking, following, subscribing, all those things. We're really excited for what we have coming up.
Yeah. And so these past few weeks, like a lot of people have been really deep on Widow's Bay, the new Apple TV show. It is a horror comedy show starring Matthew Rhys from The Americans and all sorts of other good stuff. And truly just a cast of characters, a lot of really great character actors like Jeff Hiller's in it, who's someone I love.
Sure.
The woman who plays Patricia is just a gem. But the show it's just genius. It's one of those shows that has a million perfect little details. It takes place in a very spooky New England town that's trying to be the next Martha's Vineyard. And it really sort of has all the things I love. It has character actors, it has deep lore, which if you listen to our last episode about backrooms, I talked a lot about. That's my favorite part of horror. This has all sorts of lore, and it's just been really fun to watch. So there's definitely going to be a season 2. If you somehow haven't watched it yet, I definitely recommend that one. Have you watched it, Rudi?
I haven't gotten to Widow's Bay yet, but it's like on my list. I'm really, really excited. The creator and showrunner Katie Dippold is someone who worked on Parks and Recreation, and I've seen do improv in LA before. So excited to see her kind of take on this sort of show. And yeah, everyone I've talked to about it has loved it. So it's on my list and I'm excited to watch it.
This is a deep Twitter cut for anyone, but she is the person who tweeted that she went to a party dressed as the Babadook when it was an adult Halloween party. And
I remember that.
Genuinely, when I learned that those were the same people, my brain just exploded. What about you? Any good watches?
Yeah. So one of the great things about living in the DC area is all of the historical institutions that offer free film programming. So I had 2 really cool experiences in the last week, getting to see 2 older films projected on 35 millimeter film directly from the Library of Congress's archives. So very, very cool. Both movies were introduced by a curator at the Library of Congress who gave a lot of context on both the films themselves and the prints that we were watching, which just kind of adds this extra element to it to know you're watching something that either was preserved for a reason or, is actually how audiences watched it when these things came out and were screened regularly. So the first movie that I saw, which was actually at the Library of Congress, they have kind of a small screening room there, and this was a packed screening, was Chungking Express, which is Wong Kar-wai's 1994 film about kind of longing and loneliness, starring his longtime collaborator, Tony Leung, who is also in the Mood for Love, which is kind of often considered Wong Kar-wai's masterpiece. And this is a movie that's kind of in 2 parts. And I found the first part to be a little bit challenging, but was so locked in for the second part. There's this repeated use of the Mamas and the Papas California Dreaming that is used really, really effectively. And then there is a needle drop montage in kind of like the middle of the second half that had me like levitating in the theater. It's just incredible. It is a cover of the Cranberries' Dreams done in Cantonese. So it's by Faye Wong, and it's just when it hits, you are just like cinema, like it's one of those like moments. And then a few days later, I got to go to the National Gallery of Art to see Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly's Singin' in the Rain on
Oh,
yeah,
one of my all-time favorites.
this was on a print that is part of the National Film Registry and had never been
Cool.
screened before outside of the Library of Congress, which is just like wild.
Wow.
It looked amazing. This is, of course, the classic 1952 musical, probably in the conversation for the greatest musicals ever.
Hmm.
I had seen scenes from this before, but had never seen the whole film. And
What a treat.
it looked incredible. Great to see it on film, on a big screen. The crowd, there was probably like maybe 300 to 400 people there.
Whoa, that's a
They
really
it's a big
hey,
screening room.
that's
They
cool.
clapped after nearly every musical number. Just incredible stuff. I've been to concert films where people will sort of cheer, but never like a musical like this where people are literally clapping for these performances that happened 75
Hmm.
years ago, essentially, more than that. Really just like also reminds you of how wonderful it is to see old movies on film with an
Hmm.
engaged audience. You cannot beat that. There is something about that energy. Yes, there are imperfections and sometimes the
Hmm.
audio would drop out a little bit, but that's kind of
Who
adds to the charm
cares?
a little
Yeah.
bit. And yeah, just amazing. And if you're interested in seeing more of these 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter prints, if you're in the DC area, the Library of Congress and the National Gallery of Art have more of these free film screenings planned for the coming months. And if you're in New York City, like Sophie,
Oh yeah.
the Museum of Moving Image and the Lincoln Center both have upcoming 70 millimeter festivals and programming. So highly recommend you check these institutions out and go support them keeping actual film, actual celluloid alive, because it's really something special and very cool.
There is nothing better than a Gene Kelly movie. I could watch Gene Kelly tap dance basically all day. In the summers as a kid, I would go with my family and we were not allowed to watch TV. But if it was
Uh-huh.
raining, we were allowed to watch old movie musicals. And so we watched Singing in the Rain and American in Paris and West Side Story and all that just over and over and over again. Singing in the Rain is truly one of the best movies ever made.
So now we are talking about Amazon Prime Video's Off Campus, which premiered in May. And I'm going to read the log line really quickly before we get into talking about how it's been adapted. So this is a college soap based on Elle Kennedy's best-selling book series. And the first season of Off Campus follows the unlikely romance between Rye hockey-hating music major Hannah Wells and Briar U's womanizing star center Garrett Graham as they strike a deal to help each other out. But will their deal unfold as expected? Spoiler alert, not
Yeah.
quite.
Well, yeah.
Not as expected, at least.
It's really funny even hearing you read this. I think because you just engage with part of it sometimes when we have one where it's a book that has a decent amount of pages and then a decent amount of episodes for a show. I'm like, I have literally been hanging out with these people so much for so long. Like I know everything about them.
You've spent a lot of time with these characters, and I
Yeah.
guess in the future we'll spend even more time with them.
Will I?
Um, Potentially. Um, so off campus.
The book background for this is really utterly fascinating to me as a person who reports on publishing. So, this is based on a 5-book series by Elle Kennedy. It is called the Off Campus series. There are 2 spin offs, which are Briar U and the Campus Diary series. The initial books were first published between 2015 and 2021. What is so interesting is that the first 4 were self published by Elle Kennedy and
Oh,
really had a significant following and sales track record. They were USA Today bestsellers. They
uh-huh.
were out and about on their own. She had already published 40 traditionally published books. She has now written 80 books. It's absolutely crazy. And she is what you would consider a hybrid author, meaning someone who both publishes traditionally with traditional publishing houses and also self publishes. After the 4th book was out, she did a deal with Source Books, who's one of the non Big Five publishers, with Bloom
Okay.
Books, which is one of their imprints, to do a distribution deal essentially. I could not find reporting on, the number particulars of this deal or what kind of royalty split there is, but all I'm going to say is that there is no way this woman is not milking money right now in a way that is so impressive. All 5 books are currently in the top Amazon 100. The first 4 are in the top 25. The Deal, which is the first book, which is we'll talk about how many of the books come
Sure.
into this one, but it's really the first story with Hannah and Garrett, has 191,000 Amazon reviews with a 4.5-star rating. They are all 4 of the books are currently in the top 6 of the New
Mm-hmm.
York Times bestseller list. So these books are really, really selling right now. And my guess is, or my hope is that she was able to retain some of these rights in this source book deal. But yeah, just a really interesting background for this book.
Yeah, and this has clearly been a very heavily read book, and I think the show is probably contributing to that.
The show is absolutely contributing. So, looking at the New York Times ranking, they tell you how many weeks something has been on the
Sure.
bestseller list. And so, these are actually pretty recent additions. They've only been on for 4 to 5 weeks each, which makes me think that they likely didn't hit when they
Mm.
were initially out. So, they were national, like USA Today bestsellers.
Mm-hmm.
Please do not ask me about the difference. We don't have enough time for that. But these, I really think the show is, they were already popular, but the show is blowing them up from everything
Okay.
I can tell.
Yeah, and we're recording this about 5 weeks after the show
Yep.
premiered, and Amazon already announced, I think, after 12 days that the series had reached 36 million viewers, making it the
Whoa.
third most watched series launch in the streaming service's history. So
Holy
this
crap.
is a very well seen, well read book. The show
Yeah.
is created by Louisa Levy, who kind of came up on Grey's Anatomy and worked on a series of other shows. The book was first optioned in 2019, but actually got delayed due to both COVID and the writer's strike. Louisa Levy was apparently approached with Off Campus as part of an open writing assignment, and then Prime greenlit the series in October of 2024, which happened to coincide about a year after Heated Rivalry was quietly being developed. And we'll talk a lot about Heated
Yeah.
Rivalry because there is
We're in a hockey moment. I
these are
mean,
yes, and if you're watching
yeah.
this, you're seeing me wearing a hockey sweater right
Hmm.
now. This is a Washington Capitals jersey. Hockey's probably the only sport that I've really cared about as an adult.
I don't
So
think I knew you cared about a sport. So that's great to know.
um, I cared about until they won the Stanley Cup in 2018, and then I sort of fell off a
Lost
bit.
interest.
But well, they won, and it was like, cool, we did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so Louisa Levy's the showrunner, and then veteran producer Gia Fattori is the co-showrunner, and she worked on Dawson's Creek and Gilmore Girls, which I think gives you a little bit of insight into maybe why this show is resonating with a certain generation.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think if I can give people a little insight from our text messages back and forth throughout the viewing process, I think it was mostly about us feeling that this is a really, really millennial show. And I actually
yes.
think that's maybe in talking, setting us up for some of the differences that are more specific. A really general difference is that the book is about 10 years before the show is. The show is really set in present day.
Yep.
It's not 2026, 2023 to 2025 in there. And the book is really identifiably like early millennial teens, like 2020, 12, 2013, 2014. I don't think they give you an exact year,
Mm-hmm.
but it could even be a little before. I think the biggest change that you see is there is no social media in the book. There isn't this like outside pressure and all of that world. This book feels very my time and your time
Mm-hmm.
in college.
Mm-hmm.
As I graduated in 2011, you graduated a little before me.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like a millennial experience book. And even
Yes.
though the show takes place in a Gen Z college experience time, the show, the rom-comminess of it felt so millennial.
Yes. So I watched all 8 episodes of this show with my wife,
Mhm.
and it became this like really fun thing for us to do together
I love
because
that.
we're both millennials. We met in college. So I think there's a lot to just connect with there. But there's something fun about having a show we could watch together that was entertaining, but not prestigey,
Mm,
fun and addictive, but also like we could make fun of it.
yeah.
Like when this show is not about trauma, which to be clear, a lot of it is about trauma, but when it's not about trauma, it's a really fun hang. Like
Yeah.
this is just an entertaining, kind of lighthearted show. I saw someone online call this show the most amazing low stakes bingeable romance I've seen in a long time. And like, I gotta agree, like that's a
You,
pretty good way of describing this show. It
you
feels
know,
very low stakes. It's very bingeable.
Rudy, that is such an interesting thing to me because that is actually exactly how I would describe the book. And the show, in comparison to the book, is like way more stressful. Nothing bad really happens in the book besides the underlying
Interesting.
trauma.
Sure,
Like there's
sure.
very little consequence, there's very little negative stuff. If anything, I found the show like more conflict, and I'll talk all throughout the show about that. But that's exactly how I would describe the book. Like it just was just nice. And they really don't like, they barely break up. Like everyone's pretty happy. Like it's just, these people are falling in love. I had a good
Yeah.
time.
And as you mentioned, I mean, this feels like a show that's supposed to be ostensibly for Gen Z, but
No
really it's
way.
like for millennials. It's clearly written by millennials, or maybe Gen X even in
You could
some
even argue
cases.
Gen X. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
pretty distinctive. There's like a 16 Candles when Allie and that
Yeah.
guy are
Hmm.
sitting on the table together. There's when
I
Harry
mean,
met Sally when they're in
the
bed with the
music,
split
which we
screen.
will get to the music, which is
Yeah.
very important for this show, both from a plot perspective
I have
and
some
just a needle drop
comments. I
perspective.
have a comment, but
But it reminded me of like a racy ABC Family or CW show, like racier than what you would
totally.
have seen on an ABC Family. For those of you that remember,
Well,
that became
a bit
Freeform for a
racier at the
time.
end.
Very
But
racy at the end, and
I mean, the show starts with a butt and ends with a dick.
it
So,
does. Yes, it does. And yeah, I mean, at times it's bad. And when it's bad, it reminds me of something like The Secret Life of the American Teenager, which
oh
is not a show
God.
I watched, but is a show I used to see get mocked on The Soup.
Yeah. The soup.
Really, really showing our age
That
in this one.
really
But
dated us. But you asked about the book, and I actually think that some of the raciness factors into this. So when talking about romance, it's always sort of talking about what tropes it deals in.
uh-huh.
And this deals with a lot of tropes. The main ones are going to be fake dating, enemies to lovers, and love triangle. I
Yep.
would also say the book is a slow burn romance. I
Mm.
would never call this show a slow burn romance. And they kiss in episode 2. And the book is so slow burn. Like by the time they hook up, you're like, let's go, let's go. And so that was like a very different vibe. I would also say the other place that the book and show sort of have different tropes is in the love triangle one.
Let's center
Yeah.
ourselves a little bit on kind of like the main characters and just like the general plot. We're not going to try to go through the plot of this show because
There's a lot of it.
there's a lot, but it's also like a very simple story. And
Mhm.
so essentially, our main character that we're following, our window into the story, is Hannah Wells, a music major at Breyer University, which is this fictional university in Massachusetts, I believe. She's played
Sure.
by Ella Bright, who is an actual 19-year-old.
She's perfect.
Yes.
I have never seen better casting. She is perfect. The way that she manages to actually seem innocent, but is incredibly sexy. Like, they never find a person who's like both nerdy and sexy, but they did.
Yeah, she's good.
Good
I
job.
mean, she's very good. She was born in America but grew up in Britain. So
Huh.
she has a British accent, which
Oh,
she does a pretty good American accent. I
yeah.
guess, it's in her blood. She was an unknown to me, but she is a musician. She starred in a BBC show called Mallory Towers. She also played Kate Middleton briefly in The Crown. So if you've watched The Crown, you might
What?
recognize her or have to go back and see
Yeah.
that. And then the other main character that we center on is Garrett Graham, who is a junior star captain hockey player for the Breyer University hockey team, the Breyer Hawks. He's played by
Great. Wow. Love that you
Bel-
remembered that.
he's played by Belmont Cameli, who played the son of Jesse Spano on the Saved by the Bell reboot that has probably been memory holed by anyone listening to
That seems
this.
like good casting, though, just visually.
Yeah, he was that. I was like, why do I know this guy? And it's because he's from that show. And then we have Micah Abdallah as Allie Hayes, Hannah's best friend. She's an actress who I first saw in 2024 in a movie called Snack Shack. She plays the love interest in that movie. Snack Shack is like a hidden gem coming of age story that I really recommend. She's really good in that movie, and she's really good in this. I think
Mhm.
everyone in the main cast is actually like pretty good, but she's
Yeah,
probably the best actress
I think she's
of them
very
all.
good. And I should say,
And
Allie is really barely a character in the book. So Allie's book is
interesting
number
because of the
3.
right because of the first
So
book, and we'll
they really combine a lot of the stories together. Allie and Dean are apparently the focus of the third book. And so Allie's character is much, much enhanced in this. And certainly
which
I
makes
agree with
sense.
you. I think it's a great performance. I'm really glad they
Yeah,
did.
she's good. So essentially, the story is Hannah is this music major, and she's losing her scholarship. And so she might not be able to return to school. You see her in the first episode kind of working several jobs. She first meets Garrett because she is cleaning. She's like basically working as the janitor at the hockey rink, and she walks in on him as he's showering.
You find out she's poor in the book because her mom says her dad has to pick up extra shifts at the mill, which I
Oh.
found to be very
Well, she is from
funny.
Indiana, so that makes
I know
sense
it was
that he
just
would
like,
work at
I
a
think
mill.
like you don't need to tell me quite so much. It was like, your dad needs more shifts at the mill. I was like, okay, we get it. Like, you don't have money.
She does that. She works at the bar. She's studying like classic composition. She wants to be like a classical composer. That's her goal. And Hannah has a crush on a guy named Justin, who is a musician who plays in a band called After Hours at the bar where Hannah works. And Hannah and Garrett are in a class together. They're in a, I believe, philosophy
It's an
class.
ethics class.
Is it ethics? Is it
It
philosophy?
is.
It's like
It's really
a little bit of both.
specifically ethics in
Okay,
the book,
gotcha.
which is because if you read the back of the book, I thought this was going to be a book where it weaved ethical philosophy into a romance story. Like genuinely,
There's
that's
like
what I
one
thought we
episode.
were getting.
We do it for an episode
You
of the
get
show.
even less than that. Like it's basically not in the book. I was like, oh, okay.
Hannah's really good at school. Garrett is not as good at school, and in this class, he's struggling. He needs a tutor. The two of them make a deal. The deal is that Garrett will kind of pretend to date Hannah to make
Raise
her
her social
more, yeah, to
profile.
raise her social profile and make her more appealing to Justin. And then she will tutor Garrett to help him pass the class. And of course, the two of them are going to fall in love.
Of
Like, they
course.
have to. That's just how it has to happen. And it happens
And
actually
so
pretty quick, as you know.
So, Rudi, I should stop you right there. So, Justin's character is really, really different in the book. So, Justin is a
Interesting.
football player in the book, and
Okay.
she thinks that he's like seems sensitive and unlike the other jocks. And Garrett's like, oh, I know this guy sucks. And so it was more of a way to have them like in the same sports
Uh huh.
community.
Uh
And
huh.
so Garrett basically says to him, like, this other athlete will think that you're so cool if I'm dating you. And in this one, he's the music person. They also made this change and sort of cut out a different character in the process, which is a really like shitty guy who Hannah's partnered with for her showcase performance. And so when she and Justin sort of have creative differences in their creative partnership when they start singing together, it's sort of taking that same like musical stress. And just like the Garrett, relationship happens a little earlier and like how quickly they start making out. It's the same thing with a lot of the details. Like I couldn't believe how much plot we got so fast. We don't find out she's losing her scholarship until like 80% into the
Well,
book.
the first episode of the show is called The Deal. So I'm not surprised that they spent time burning through a lot of the plot in the first episode because that's what it's called.
Totally. Yeah.
And so this show starts kind of centering on the relationship between Hannah and Garrett. And Hannah really does not like Garrett. Like she is very
Enemies to
resistant
lovers.
to this whole thing. And so, again, one of those tropes that you mentioned. And actually, interestingly, it is music that kind of brings them together. Garrett is struggling during a game, and Hannah, for some reason, I don't remember why, she
Ugh,
goes
I know.
to they have like a piano in the bowels of this hockey arena, and she starts playing along to a cassette. Love that there are cassettes in this show. Starts playing along to Elton John's The Bitch Is Back, and great song, and is singing along, and Garrett hears it, and you just see him kind of fall for her in that moment. And it's very like kind of genuine
Yeah.
and sweet. And it's interesting because Garrett starts out as like a playboy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's or I guess a fuckboy, whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
He's
All of the
got
above. Yeah.
he's got all of these different puck
The
bunnies
puck bunnies.
as they call
Yeah.
them, the kind of groupies for the hockey team, sending him snaps and constantly reaching out to
Sending
him.
snaps.
And that's again a little bit of where they try to bring this into modern youth culture a little bit. But one of the things that I think this show does surprisingly well is it's kind of anti-toxic masculinity.
So the book is the most anti-toxic masculinity thing I've ever read.
Yeah,
Like the amount that everyone is just so understanding of trauma, understands everything, like even way more than the show, is fascinating. Like all the guys just become good guys, and it just sort of is, like with the exception of Garrett's dad. And
right.
I think it is really interesting when you put it in the context of like a sport like hockey, which is like pretty violent,
Yeah.
which obviously comes up in the book and the
Yes.
show. But yeah, I think, something when I said earlier, the book has so little conflict in a way where it like almost feels fake. Like anytime anyone tells anyone anything, it's just like, I see you and I feel you and I understand that. And like, here we are. And you're just like, that's not how boys reacted to things I told them in college. Like,
No, and
what are you
I
talking
mean,
about?
so we've only briefly mentioned Dean, who is another hockey player who is played by Stephen Kalin, and
He's the rich. Well, I guess they're both
he's the
rich.
rich one. Yeah. I mean, well, he's like really
Well,
with
Garrett's
Garrett.
dad is a hockey
Yes,
player.
we should mention that Garrett's dad is a hockey player, a famous hockey player. It's Phil Graham, who's on the New York Rangers, and he's played by Steve Howie, who people might remember from Reba, the
Reba,
sitcom. Yeah, well, he
a
plays like kind
single
of a
mom who works
dopey
too hard.
kind of dude in that. And he's honestly, I think he's miscast in this show. He's so wooden, his performance. It does
It's
not work for
a
me.
I will say I thought it was like not a very good character in the book, and it's
No.
not a very good character in the show, like
Mm-mm.
really one-dimensional.
Yeah, he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
So there's this scene where Garrett realizes that he has feelings for Hannah, and he goes to have a conversation with Dean about kind of his friend who might have feelings with this girl who has some kind of trust issues.
Hmm.
And they have this scene where you think that Dean, who at this point has been portrayed as this, again, another kind of playboy character who seems a lot more misogynistic. He is pretty much having sex with a different girl every single time we see him at this point.
Yep.
Then they have this like very like almost what feels like out of character heart to heart about how to like earn trust and treat a
Yep.
woman. And it's like kind of a really nice, sweet moment. It's the moment where I went, I think this show is trying to be anti-toxic masculinity and it's kind of working.
Yes, I agree with you. I think so this plays out in the book, I think, like in an even larger way. And so
Mm-hmm.
this is a good moment for me to bring up like a key difference. And we should have said this maybe earlier, but content warning, we're going to discuss issues around sexual assault and consent being broken. So please, if those are something you don't want to hear, please, tune out of this episode. So we find out about the show in the book that Hannah had been drugged and raped at a party when she was in high school, and that she has really no relationship now with people in her hometown because the person who assaulted her was the mayor's son, I believe it was. And so that's been obviously a really
And
terrible,
also a hockey player.
and also a hockey player. And so in the show, there's a scene where Rudi, do you interpret it in the show as that is the person who assaulted her or just one
Yes.
of the people in the town? Okay.
Yes.
So in the book, that's pretty different. So it's
Hmm.
a person from the town. So we find out that I think in both that
Mhm.
the person's friends falsely testified against him and said that he hadn't assaulted her, that they hadn't seen anything. And so one of the friends who falsely testified is the person who Garrett and Hannah see at a game. The assault is not of another player, it's not during the game, and it's not on the ice. And because of that, the NCAA doesn't get involved at all. There's essentially no consequences. And so I'll talk in a second about why that change was made. I think there's some really interesting reasons, but in the book, there's just no consequences. It's like everyone's like, oh my God, of course you beat up the guy who hurt your girlfriend. Like, we all would have done that too. Like, of course, this is what we would have done. Like, there's just consistently like no pushback. And not to say that Gareth doesn't have that capacity, especially as someone who's seen violence in his life and his own personal life. I do think the fact that, like, in the book, every single person is just like, oh my God, we totally get it, bro. Like, say nothing else. Yeah. Like, men are bad. Oh my God, go get them. Is
unrealistic.
There's just no, and look, sometimes you just want these books to be fantasies. This book does an amazing job in a lot of ways with consent, we see condoms throughout it in both the show and in the book. I think there's
also
lot of
product placement, but yes.
Also product placement. But I think there's some really great, a lot of women, I've reported on this, a lot of women, like, issues around sexual safety are part of the fantasy in a lot of romance books. And so having those things in there can really add to that feeling. And so I think I am glad that for the show, we see a bit more complexity around some of these things. But it is interesting to hear you bring up the point of, like, yeah, it's just so, like, of course we get it from, like, all the toxic masculine bros, because I agree with you. And, like, it's a feeling throughout the book. I had quite a bit.
And it's weird. It is a little, like, because you don't expect it from a show like this. And, Sophie, you alluded to a lot of the trauma. And so the show kind of slow rolls the trauma in a way that I actually found frustrating at times, because it was, like, very, like,
they do
obvious
it in the book too. Yeah.
What was probably happening, but they just won't come out and say it. And actually there is conflict near the end of the first season that maybe could have been solved by Hannah and Garrett just talking to each other a little bit.
Classic.
But the trauma is not, obviously our two main characters both have trauma. And so Hannah, as you mentioned, has been sexually assaulted, and it's held her back to the point where she not only will not talk about it with anyone who she's now met, but also she won't write songs anymore. And early on, one of the things that makes Garrett fall for Hannah, they're at a party, and he just pulls up her Instagram trying to figure out who she is, because he's, like, she's caught his eye, but he doesn't really know who she is that well. She doesn't know her name. They've just kind of interacted a little bit. And he pulls up this video, and he's smitten by this song that she's written, this very Taylor Swift-esque song that she's written as a teenager. And she can't write these songs anymore. She's kind of lost her voice because of her trauma that she won't let out, or that she's afraid of showing the world who she is because of her trauma.
We sort of see this, like, closing off in two ways. It's the music, and then it's what she wants Garrett to work on her with, which is like her inability to orgasm with a partner. And let me tell you, like, yeah, that's part of the show, but man, we spend a lot of the book just talking about Hannah and orgasming. And Rudi, I feel like this is the right moment to say, we were coworkers for 4 years. And so this is just, we took a lot of various sexual harassment training modules. And so this is just hilarious to be like, let's talk about this character's inability to climax.
I think I wrote down at the end of episode 3, it ends with Hannah saying to Garrett, I need you to give me an orgasm. Cut to black.
Mic drop.
Pretty incredible. And I do think my wife said to me after that, really curious to hear how you're going to talk about this on the podcast.
I know. Well, I did say to you before you started watching, I was like, I just can't wait for you to find out what this book is about. It's about, because, like, the book, like, really focuses in, like, that's the deal with Garrett. It's like, you will give me an orgasm. Like, that's what's happening. And I will say my least favorite moment in the show, which was Back in My Body by Maggie Rogers being used for her orgasming, which I found, as a huge Maggie Rogers fan, like, can we leave Maggie out of this? Like, that was so
What was your problem with it? Just too on the nose?
It made the whole thing made me cringe. It's a great song. I did not enjoy that. I thought that was way too on the nose, like, to the point of being ridiculous. And this is where, now look, I will also add that I did listen to this as an audiobook, and the book is quite racy. And so, I am just walking my dog in the park at like 9 a.m., listening to that scene be described.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that was an experience for me.
I can only imagine. Um, and so as you noted, we have that climactic moment.
We sure do.
And for a while, for a little bit, everything's great. We have this
Yeah.
great montage that's just kind of like, okay, yeah, they're just like going at it all the
Mm-hmm.
time now. And then eventually we start to learn about Garrett's trauma. And so Garrett, again, this is very slow rolled throughout kind of several episodes, but as Sophie mentioned earlier, Garrett's famous hockey player dad, he abuses women.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, as we learn near the end, he also abused Garrett when he was a child. And I, how do you feel about how that was handled in the show? I mean, we get like a brief moment where like we have like a housemaid situation where like, if you haven't seen that movie,
I haven't.
where Garrett is kind of realizes that his dad is now abusing his new wife. Hannah and Garrett go over for Thanksgiving dinner, and you know Garrett's kind of always has this like remove from his dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's it's the one person who like really like makes him mad, but it's like unclear. He's keeping it bottled up, and it's not until that moment that we sort of really realize what's happening.
So in the book, Garrett's dad is like only one note, like he's only gruff. So even when he
Uh-huh.
was like sort of friendly to Garrett, when Garrett goes over for Thanksgiving, I was like very confused by that because he's only comically one note in the book. So any amount of like caricature you think the show character is, just know that the book is that like times eight. And so I was almost like just even surprised to see anything from Garrett's dad.
I liked this show. Like, I want to make that
Yeah.
very clear. Like, I found this show to be really fun. I really enjoyed it. It reminded me again of all of these older shows. Really reminded me of The Bold Type, which is was a freeform ABC Family show about a bunch of recent college grads at a fashion magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and it was another show that just felt like this is millennial experience, but for some reason it's set as Gen Z, or it's older people writing about young people. And as someone who is continually getting older every single day,
Yeah.
I think I find more joy in these kinds of shows, but also there's a little bit of comfort and nostalgia. And this show has been anecdotally very popular among older millennial women, millennial moms. I've seen a lot of think
Yeah.
pieces about that. And it is hitting on these kinds of shows that we grew up with. It's also kind of doing rom-com-y stuff, as you've mentioned
Mm-hmm.
several times. There's a Harry Met Sally kind of homage at one point, right?
I
With
loved
like
it. They're on
cutting
their
screens.
phones
Yeah.
looking at different like Instagram reels across the bed with a split screen. I genuinely like had a huge smile on my face for
Yeah.
that.
I mean, there's all this like
There's good
really
details.
nice stuff that's like, okay, the people who worked on this like know what they're doing. They know who they're appealing to. And I I think that that's great. And that's what I really liked about this show. I found it kept me engaged. It's funny, it's a little dumb, but it works, you know? This is the kind of show that if it were not for this podcast, I might not
Yeah.
have checked out, but I did watch Heated Rivalry. I believe you watched Heated Rivalry too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
sure did. I loved Heated
and
Rivalry so
maybe
much.
I would have checked this out because of Heated Rivalry.
I think Heated Rivalry is so much better than this.
I I agree with you, but
They're
it's
different
interesting. They're
though.
very different. They're very similar. Like there was a moment when so in the maybe in like episode 6 or 5, the perspective suddenly shifts to Allie and Dean for about
Mm-hmm.
half the episode. And I wrote down in my notes, not beating the Heated Rivalry for straights
Yeah,
allegations,
but
because
that's
like
what this
that's
is.
exactly
Sorry,
what
like
Heated
of
Rivalry
course.
does. Yeah.
But sorry, is there any way in which this isn't Heated Rivalry for straights?
No, I mean it totally is.
It's the
Even down to
whole
the
vibe.
use of butts.
Right. Well, literally, when I saw a butt in a locker room within the first
Yeah,
5 minutes,
same.
I literally wrote down, like, are you copying Heated Rivalry? Because they don't meet like that in the book. They meet in class. So I was like, it's not like it's the same scene you're giving it to me.
Sure.
You're just giving me that right away.
Yeah.
And I will
I
say, like, I got more into this as I watched, but I
yeah.
actually, like, at the beginning was sort of like a little annoyed by some of
Mhm.
this stuff where I just was like, You don't have to put it all in there right away. Like,
I,
what's
and
so good about the book is the slow burn.
I agree with you that Heated Rivalry overall is better. I think what Heated Rivalry does in telling this story over an extended period of time and condensing it into the limited amount of episodes they had is really, really well done. The episode where the perspective does suddenly shift to two different characters for an entire episode is also really, really inventive and
So
well done
good.
and impressive. Connor Story is the best actor on either of these shows. But Heated Rivalry also has some bad acting. It also has some like corny sort of things that happen. It's just a more
It's not
interesting,
corny in the
compelling
same
show.
way. I just don't
No.
think it's corny in the same way. But I don't, and I haven't read Heated Rivalry, but my
Hmm.
guess is that the books are more similar than the shows are similar.
That's interesting. Yeah.
That would, but, and genuinely, actually, I would love to hear about that from people who have read both. Please, it was a book first at gmail.com. Really, really curious to hear.
Well, and if you want to hear Sophie's thoughts on Heated Rivalry, please let us know. And maybe who knows? Maybe at some point we will do that.
Honestly, I would love any excuse to rewatch that show. It's so good. So I will say a little bit. I mentioned earlier, I think the casting on Hannah could not be more perfect. Garrett didn't really work for me.
And why is that?
He's okay. This is like a really lame answer first, which is that he's described as so big in the book, like so hulking. Like she keeps saying, she says throughout the book, he's so big.
Sure.
Constant. He's so big. I feel so small. He's so big. And I just wasn't getting it. I just wasn't like, getting that like burly feel.
Okay.
And
he's sensitive.
It didn't fully work for me. And I think this is one where it's hard. You know, I think what is so interesting about Heated Rivalry, and honestly what made it so good, was the chemistry. They found two actors where I'm not speculating that they're together. Their chemistry is electric. And I did not find Hannah and Garrett's chemistry in this show to be electric.
Well, I mean, he calls her Wellesley the entire time. It's kind of hard when you know,
he does call her Wellesley the entire time.
I will say, and I have to say this because I didn't really have the same problem that you had, but you know, I don't know.
Nor did the internet.
The internet didn't
People seem really happy.
The problem I had with Garrett is that he sounds exactly like my friend Tucker. And
what's he supposed to do about that?
He has a voice, and if you heard Tucker talk and you heard this guy talk, you would go, that is the same person. There is a stern calmness to the way that they speak. My wife and I, the entire time, we were just like, that is Tucker. And once we figured it out, we could not stop thinking about distracting. That. But I thought he was fine. But anyway, back to Heated Rivalry and the hockey thing.
Yes.
We're in the hockey romance TV era, and it's not just these two shows. So Netflix actually just ordered a adaptation of Icebreaker, and this is another college romance series. This one follows a competitive figure skater and a hockey player who have to share the rink. And these are not the first like ice set hockey set romances. I think The Cutting Edge is another it's a movie that was also similar to this. I am just so curious why hockey has been the vehicle. And so Elle Kennedy, in an interview with People, did say, quote, I think hockey romance has always been the most popular of sports romances. I think Book Talk gave it more of a bit of a mainstream impact, which was so cool, and it created a gazillion new hockey fans. But I've always loved sports romance, and I know so many people who do, so I'm not surprised it took off. But like, why hockey? That's what I'm kind of struggling with. Is like, why is this the sport that like we've decided to bring the romance genre back on TV for?
I did receive, so I just put out a call on my Twitter to see if anyone had interesting thoughts who had watched. And I got one really interesting one from a woman named Michaela, who herself is Black. And she said, you've probably seen other culture writers asking where the Black girls in TV are and discussing the overall lack of diversity in new shows. The popularity of hockey romances seems to be a convenient way of not needing to hire Black and brown actors or have them as mains leads.
That's a really good point.
Which I had not thought of that myself. I hate it. And it's unfortunately a really interesting point. Hockey is the
Yes.
I mean,
I think so.
lacrosse,
Yeah.
like it's the
In terms of
whitest sport.
professional major four sports,
Yes,
yes, that is
definitely.
yeah.
And so that look, if you had a basketball show, it would be very different casting just by the way teams are. And so I think unfortunately that's could definitely be a factor.
I also wonder if hockey being smaller from a cultural standpoint is part of this too. Like it has less baggage than football
Hmm.
or basketball or even baseball.
I think football is
Hockey's
a really hard one right
yeah,
now with just
I
everything.
I agree too. And hockey is kind of like the least popular of those four. So it's maybe easier to enter that world as someone who doesn't care about hockey. You can
Hmm.
just like jump in.
Yeah.
There's a couple of weird little quirks about hockey that I guess make it interesting. I do think that the emphasis of hockey on Briar University is maybe a little bit extreme, but there are some schools
I
where
did
that's the
write.
case.
So something I found really funny in this, they make it really clear in the book, like Garrett is such hot shit on campus. Like he can't go anywhere without people like basically flinging their underwear at him. And as someone who attended an 1,800-person liberal arts college, I just found this very confusing. And now I should say, Rudi, actually feel really uniquely qualified.
Okay.
I lost my virginity to a hockey player in college.
Oh,
So
wow.
more things we would not have talked about at work. And so
Sure.
the idea that any of those hockey guys at my college would have been like really cool because they played hockey is genuinely hilarious to me.
Oh,
Like,
so
I think I like,
that's not why that happened.
no, not at all. I did not attend a hockey game, I don't think, in 4 years of college. Like they weren't, I think actually they just won a championship, but they were not good. And it was
Okay.
not like cool to be on the hockey team. And so the fact that they're like, if you play hockey, everyone's literally obsessed with you just really got me as a D3 school. But just to say, hockey was not like cool at my school, even though I went to school in upstate New York. So it just really amused me, this idea that hockey people were like, so exciting. I did ask, my boyfriend went to Virginia Tech and I was like,
Mhm.
were football players like were people just reacting like
Yes.
that to the celebrity of it all? Like it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I went to University of Maryland and yeah, the athletes who played up basketball and football were treated a little bit differently than
Yeah, there was none of
everybody
that at
else,
Hamilton
for sure.
College. Shout out.
Virginia Tech and College
Oh
Park
yeah,
are both
a little
big
different.
schools, so
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah, okay. So back to the hockey thing. Just in
Unfortunately, the
case there's
show made me
any
watch hockey. The book did not make me engage. Like there's no hockey games in the book. They're just like, and the game's over. And then I wrote in my notes like, fuck, I have to watch hockey now.
some of this is heated rivalry, right? Heated rivalry became successful, and then so suddenly it's like, okay, let's option all the shows that now obviously this was in
Yeah.
development beforehand, but Netflix optioning Icebreaker, which apparently has been a viral hit on Book Talk. It makes sense because we've already seen success now twice.
Totally. And the author also said like the project kept getting delayed and sort of wasn't happening. And then it was like, go,
But
go, 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 go at
let's
the
bring
very
back
end.
some other like rom-commy or romancy type shows without involving hockey. Hockey doesn't have to be the center. That's not the secret for why these are successful. Heated rivalry and off campus are successful because they are giving us stories that we have been like devoid of in recent years. Like we don't these kinds of
What do you mean?
romance
Say more,
stories.
Rudi.
Well, heated rivalry. Okay, we can you remember another show that told a gay love story like that?
Oh, no. Sorry. I thought you
No.
meant like romance in
Well,
general.
I would say the same thing. Like with off campus. I mean, what shows have been doing this kind of take on the rom-com movies that we grew up with or the soapy teen dramas that we grew up with? This stuff just isn't happening at scale anymore. And I think people are hungry for these kinds of shows and movies, and we're just not getting them.
If anything, it seems to me a little bit like TV film was just behind the books industry on this one because romance really exploded years ago. It's always been a massive genre in publishing, but it has just contemporary romance has completely exploded. And if anything, I think that we're like really seeing these projects get optioned now. And there's no stop to it as far as I can tell. There's so many new romance books coming out, and there's just going to be a huge appetite, I think, that heated rivalry
Yeah.
definitely accelerated.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've kind of teased this, but Off Campus was already picked up for season 2 before season 1 even
Yeah,
premiered. And a big change heading into season 2 is they're going with a Bridgerton model. And so, unlike what you might have assumed, we are not going to necessarily be following Hannah and Garrett as the main couple in season 2. So season 1 sort of wraps up with Hannah and Garrett. I mean, I guess we should talk briefly about how the show ends. And I thought that
sure.
the middle was maybe the best of this show, and the end was maybe the worst in some ways. And
It goes on too long.
it does go on a little bit too long. And we get this episode 7, where basically the man who assaults Hannah is a hockey player on a rival team, and he comes to play against Briar, and it's basically makes Hannah have a panic attack.
Yeah.
Which totally understandable,
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
a
Oh my
pretty good
God.
representation of a panic attack, I think, as well.
I think they treat all of this with a lot of respect
Yes,
and
a lot of respect
yeah,
and care, and Hannah, she's aware that he's going to be playing this guy. Hannah does not tell Garrett that. And through a kind of like contrived sort of situation, Hannah eventually ends up at the game.
Garrett like sort of picks up on what's happening and the guy whispers something to him. I
Yes,
mean, we should point out this guy is awful to
he's
everyone.
awful.
He's like,
Yeah.
again, this is like they do a lot of stuff where you're like, well, we already knew he was awful. We didn't also have to like
Yeah.
have him doing other shitty stuff to people,
And then
but
Garrett
beats the shit out of him.
drops the glove and beats the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And he gets suspended from the NCAA, as you mentioned earlier, or suspended, I guess, suspended by the team, and then later the NCAA.
This is a really interesting change. And this is one that they actually had to make because of the time difference. In the book, like I said, there's really no consequences. His coach is like, we get it. The NCAA isn't even involved. This whole thing with the Bruins and like him maybe going to the team afterwards, like when he gets drafted, is not part of it. And so in the last 10 years, we have really different rules around NCAA athlete rules and money. And so what happens in the book is that Garrett's dad blackmails Hannah and is basically like, you're making my son fuck up and be bad at hockey. You need to break up with him. If you don't, I'll cut him off financially. He'll lose, like, he won't be able to
Oh,
get a scholarship because we have a lot of money. He'll have to drop out, and his dream of hockey will be over. And Hannah's like, fuck. And so Hannah breaks up with Garrett because of it, not the other way
that's
around.
so interesting. So in the show, Garrett, after beating up this guy, decides, I'm like my dad. I'm too much of a hot cannon. Like, I
Yep,
am too violent. I have too much violence inside of me. I can't be around you. I'm not good for you. And breaks up with Hannah. It's kind of ridiculous.
exactly. And so, well, the reason why they had to do the switch is because there would be no financial issue if Garrett's dad stopped paying for college. He could do a couple sponsored Instagram posts, which we see him getting deals offers for
he does
earlier in the
he
show.
does some liquid IV
Yeah,
spawn,
like there's your
which is very funny.
50K for Briar U or whatever right there. And so they needed to change it to have this like actually really impact. And so the NCAA of him going to the Bruins and violating the no early practices thing with pro teams, it gets him really screwed up with his team. And they basically forfeit all their
all
wins
the
for
games,
the year, which if I was on that team,
I would
I'd
have been so
lose my
pissed.
shit.
Yeah, but they're all very understanding because
Like
again, these
very
are evolved
understanding.
men.
They're very evolved. Yeah.
We should talk about how Hannah is trying to get a scholarship through this
Yeah.
this songwriting contest, this performance contest, and she starts writing a song with the other guy, and that plot kind of gets dragged out a bit too much. Because like once she starts dating Garrett, it's like, who cares about
Yeah, and
Justin
honestly,
anymore?
I thought the show even made it more of a love triangle than the book. Like they don't nothing happens. They don't even kiss in the book. It's not a love triangle. And so the fact that we even got a couple
Yeah.
episodes of maybe Justin was like more than the book.
But I guess we should talk about how Hannah kind of breaks through her trauma. And so she pulls out all her old notebooks and is looking through all the lyrics. And she has a like actually like kind of both lovely and a little silly conversation with her advisor. He's performing and he's playing this like beautiful song that he's written, and she's on the piano and she's like, wow, how did you even write something like that? And he's like, you just have to let yourself
Just feel.
out. You have to feel. And she's like, oh my God, you're totally right. Like,
I found the songwriting stuff like
it.
pretty tough in this. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a little cringe. And she does
It's
this
really
performance cringe. And it's, you know, wonderful performance of this like really complicated pop song where she is like triggering samples.
She also just shows up and is like, I am gonna perform today with no practice and like in a gown.
And she's in a gown. She's triggering samples like, on a laptop.
Yeah.
She's got like this machine she's pressing buttons on. She's playing piano. She picks up an electric guitar at one point. It's incredibly involved.
This is like just a personal thing that I can't handle in movies and TV shows is when someone's performing like that and they pan to the audience and everyone's like,
Well, and all her friends get there
really
last minute.
Me.
Like Garrett's there last minute, everyone else is there last minute, and they're in the front row. And it's like, really? They're in the front row just for her performance? They just showed up. And in the big grand romantic gestures that Garrett showed up, and then they get back together and yay,
when they
we're
said
all happy.
She loves romantic like grand gestures, and the grand gesture was entering an auditorium. That also really got me. I was like, wow, the bar is on the floor.
Absolutely. I want to talk about a few maybe random thoughts we have about this show, because there's a lot of like little things as we were watching this that I jotted down or thought about. I mean, just getting back to the scene we were just talking about, we like literally get the Jerry Maguire speech from Garrett. He does like a "you complete me." Like, he doesn't say that exactly, but it's essentially the same speech. In terms of some stray observations, I want to talk about music, because music is a really important part of this show. Obviously, Hannah's a musician. Garrett has like taste in old music. The cassettes are, I don't know if they're his or if he just finds them and starts playing them, but he loves old music. At one point, he does the Tom Brady, like, everything's okay Instagram post. Where he like posts a picture of the beach and it's like Leonard Skinner's Tuesday's Gone is the song that's playing.
That was really good.
There's a lot of like millennial core music in this. Jets, Are You Gonna Be My Girl gets dropped. There's a Black Keys needle drop. Allie is wearing the J-Lo Grammys dress to a party while dancing to Gaga. Of course, Hannah, back to the rom-com stuff, Hannah has a "she's all that" moment at the costume party where she is literally walks down the stairs in a Legally Blonde moment. She literally walks down the stairs as essentially Elle Woods in Legally Blonde in costume as a bunny,
as Rachel cooked.
And has that like, oh my God, she's beautiful moment. The Beths,
she's
the
gorgeous.
band are a key plot point for the show, and the Beths have actually started integrating off-campus clips into their performance of the song that's featured on the show. Having good music taste is a big part of this. I think the fact that Hannah likes both some modern stuff but then also some old stuff is how she kind of also connects with Garrett. The fact that Garrett likes all this old music, he gets that from his mom. So there's a lot of that I find I don't know, just kind of like fun.
Yeah.
We're just getting all this stuff. And there's more modern pop. I have more thoughts, but Sophie, any other random observations you want to share?
I think just one more sort of thing that they put more in here than if they were just sticking to the first book is Garrett's friend named Logan.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't talked about Logan. Yeah. So Logan, big part of the show.
Yeah. Logan is Garrett's friend. And Logan also has a sister named Jules, who is not at all a character in the book, completely invented for the show. So Logan has a crush on Hannah. It's pretty obvious.
Very
she
obvious
does
in the show. Yeah.
Kiss him as sort of like a joke moment at one point. So apparently the second book is very focused on Logan. And so you get that at the very, very end of book one. It's like, oh shit, like someone says to him, like, you're in love with it's acknowledged that he's basically in love with Hannah. And they really bring that in a lot more in the show earlier on.
I will note that they have cast a couple of characters for next season, and the actress India Fowler is going to play that love interest that you're talking about. And also Philippa Sue from Hamilton is going to be in a recurring role in the second season. I don't know what role she's playing, but
I love her.
So I think that's
Yeah, I
That'll
mean,
be
in general,
interesting. But
the book
Logan,
is.
just real quick on
Oh yeah.
Logan, he's played by Antonio Cipriano, who was in Jagged Little Pill on
Oh
Broadway. And Jules, we should note, they're like very, very like explicitly from a poor background. Their mother is a
yes.
junkie. Their dad is not around. And they live together in the house with Garrett and Dean and John Tucker, who is
Hmm.
played by Jalen Thomas Brooks, who is otherwise known to many people as Mateo from The Pit. I just want to point out with that character that like it's so funny that he is just like the guy who like makes food around the
Okay,
house. Like
I was going to bring this.
it's just
No,
it's I feel like it's a
Rudy,
joke, right?
no, I went to college with this guy.
There's
I
always a guy
swear
like that.
to
I know I had a
God.
friend like this too.
His name was Chris. He was in the football frat, and we would like go to parties at his house, and there would be seasonal tablescapes, and the football guys would be like, "Chris made us a beautiful salmon last night," and we were like, "What are you talking about?"
I thought it was so funny to have his like whole arc peak with Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Like I had a moment where I was like, this is his pit moment.
Yes.
Is this harder than working in the ER? Like he has to try to put together this like last minute crazy Thanksgiving dinner, and it is very stressful. He's fun because he's just like
it's a fun group of guys,
just
as you
funny
said.
in the
They're
background. Yeah,
it's nice. Look, we're gonna ask this on a lot of episodes. Like, does hockey solve the male loneliness crisis? Like, these are some good friends.
It might. I don't know that that's gonna solve the problem. One thing real quick. Just want to shout out that Hannah is lactose intolerant, just like me, and representation matters. For those of us who can't have dairy products, we really feel seen in moments like that. One thing we haven't talked about, which I think is a really, really well done moment, is the moment where Hannah tells Allie about what happened to her.
Cry. That to me was the most moving moment in the show. So
part of it's in the way that Allie sells the reaction to that. I mean, that actress,
she's very good.
Yeah.
As you were alluding to, Hannah tells her best friend finally and sort of says, I've been telling you the story about my quote unquote friend. It was me. And Allie just looks at her and is like, of course it was you. And that got me. I will say I often respond more to the friendship, and even in a romance novel. And I thought their relationship was really beautiful. And as you've said a couple of times, that actress is really strong.
Yeah, I think she's going to be a big star, especially with her being the lead character, one of the lead characters in the next season. I think that's going to be really big for her. Can we also talk about regarding Allie? There is another character, another hockey player who's kind of a minor character whose sister is a moderately famous actress in the universe of the show. And she shows up one day, and Allie is a fan of this actress, and this character, I can't remember her name, but she has a name that is said multiple times in full. She shows up and needs help doing a
reading,
like a screen test, and her and Allie just start bonding. Like this woman who's like older, we don't know how old, but clearly at least in her like
a couple years
20s, just like sits on her bed, like they're having a conversation, and then for the first time, we have a character say the name of the show, which I always love to note when the name of a movie or a show gets said.
It's
She's
always like
we got to get off campus. She says we need to get somewhere off campus because Allie, what we've left out is that Allie has been in this long-term relationship with this guy. It's like kind of boring. She breaks up with him.
Boring.
Can't really get over it. She starts having this dalliance with Dean, and is trying not to be like, oh, I'm just jumping from relationship to relationship. So this ostensibly successful professional actress is like, we got to get somewhere off campus and go get you laid, basically. And so they go to this like hotel bar or some other like, upscale bar, and she like sets her up with this guy, this like random guy,
Hunter Davenport. His name is Hunter Davenport. Like that is definitely a name of someone I went to college with.
And what's like so weird about that is that like she's like, okay, so you're not allowed to know anything about each other. You two are just gonna like hook up, and then she is just in the background, sitting,
just watching them,
just watching and like twirling her hair and stuff. And it's like,
it's weird.
Why is she doing this? It's super weird.
It's really weird.
That's why I like a show like this, because it like has weird shit like that where you're like, what are they doing?
The book is about Hannah and Garrett. Just like the show, them getting together is not the very end of the book. I'd say it comes maybe 70% in, whereas this was right at the halfway point. But this is just like a crazy ensemble show of people doing things and fun characters, and it makes it a really engaging watch.
What'd you think of Garrett having to talk about Kierkegaard and then explaining ghosting through Kierkegaard?
Okay, that whole scene is not in the book. I was like, what in
I
the
loved it.
actual hell? But again, it's like, I remember stuff like that happening in college. Like, that's the weird shit that happens. So
that's the same episode where Hannah reveals that she made a playlist about Justin, and like it's like says called like Crushin', and it has a picture.
Crush it.
Like, this is what I'm talking about.
Really good details.
There's a lot of just like funny little things that stuck with me. Like the more I watched this show, and that's why I liked this show. I don't know. And then for some reason, there's dicks at the end.
Yeah. When Hannah, we should just say that one of the last scenes, like right before Hannah and Garrett get together at the end, she just goes in to yell at him. Oh, this is actually really important that people who read the book care about a lot.
Okay.
Which is this like hands-off mandate that she thinks that he did.
Yeah. That's so like a very brief thing.
Yeah, so in the book, he very clearly like gives the whole campus a like hands-off Hannah mandate, which is actually not very progressive and is like one of Garrett's not great moves. But that didn't make sense anymore because he breaks up with her, and so that would just be cruel versus her breaking up with him, and then you could at least be like, he's hurt. But don't do that. And so they just had it be like a rumor that ended up not being true just because they thought people would riot if it wasn't part of it. But in the process of going to yell at Garrett about it, all these dicks are out. We're in a locker room, and it's just like dicks. And so that was, I will say, a tad surprising.
Very surprising. And I just will also note that there is a Mazzy Star Fade Into You breakup montage, and just very millennial, if you've ever done a yoga class on Peloton, you've probably heard that song before, as I have many, many times. Okay, so Off Campus. Sophie, you read The Deal, which was just the first book in the Off Campus series. And this is, of course, the point in every episode where Sophie has a very important choice to make. So this is a segment that is based on a movie, that is based on a book, where Sophie decides which she preferred, the book or the TV show. So Sophie, Off Campus or The Deal?
This is one where I actually wish I hadn't read the book and had just watched the show.
Interesting.
And it's not that I didn't enjoy reading the book. I actually think I enjoyed the book experience maybe more than the show, just because by the time I got to the back half of the show, I was pretty over it. I just was like, I have been in this too much. But I think the show is incredibly compelling, and I love how they combine the books. And I have really just no desire to read 5 books of this. And I will be honest, the writing of the books is not great. I want to be really clear. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's terrible. It's not great. And I
can drag her. It's okay.
No, I will say when I think a book is really bad, but this was very readable, like not an issue. It's not great. And you're dealing with some weird stuff where it's like referring to someone's like body parts as like their sex. Like, I wanted his sex and like stuff like that, where I was just like, ooh, like kind of like took me out of it. Yeah. And I think the show does a really good job of just making a really compelling teenage rom-com. And I love how they combined it. And I think I really look forward to watching like future seasons. I do not think I will be going back to the books.
I do too. And like, I would say this is one of those examples where having watched this without the book, I agree with you. You do not have to read the books. And in some ways, it is probably a better experience to just watch the show. Obviously, if you've listened to this, you now know most of what happened, but
the only exception I will say is the show. If you're utterly obsessed with Hannah and Garrett as characters, and you just like, the book is going back and forth between their two interior monologues. So if you want to just feel inside their heads, learn more about their backgrounds, get more richness and detail, like, more power to you. But if you're just here for like the general plot of the story, I really don't think you need to go read the book.
I like that they didn't try to replicate that for the show, because
I
I
think it
think
would have
that
been
could
quite
have
bad.
been pretty bad. And the fact that they decided to turn this into more of an ensemble, I think worked in their favor. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, this is a again a very entertaining,
Yeah.
quick, easy watch. I wrote down a quote after the final episode that I couldn't remember what it was from, and I was like, "Is this from the show?" The quote is, "That show changed my life," and no, that is not from the show. That's from my wife.
Oh, Lauren.
She really
Oh, I'm
liked this
happy for
show.
her. That's wonderful.
She had a lot of fun with this. I had a lot of fun watching this, and I have heard that this is a thing that women are watching this show, and then the husbands are kind of like catching a little bit of it and then sticking
It's the
around. Like that's
hockey.
been written about a bunch. Same thing happened with Heated Rivalry,
Yeah.
and I mean, look, we watched this together from the beginning, but this is a great show to watch with a partner, like I said earlier, because it's really fun
Yeah.
and it's
There's something for
light
everyone.
and it's just entertaining. And I really never thought when we signed up to do this one that I'd be here telling you to watch Off Campus, but you should watch Off Campus. It's a fun show, and I'm looking forward to season 2.
No, I was so just like charmed when you texted me that you were loving the show. I think it's great. And no, it's been like fun. And I will say this on basically anything we talk about that is selling like obscene amounts of books. Like, I love it. I love to see
Yeah,
it. It's just so great. So, really happy to see more of these huge rom com properties, be brought to the screen and keep printing money for books.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Sophie.
Thanks, Rudi.
And we will see you next week. Bye.
Thanks.
It Was a Book First is hosted and produced by Sophie Vershbow and Rudi Greenberg. Music written by Cliff Blum and John Connolly, produced by Kevin Pons. Logo by Trisha Louise Prieto. Website by Kevin Bob. Follow us on Instagram at It Was a Book First Pod, and we'll see you next week.